In today's Quick Hack series, we're just going to be working on unlocking your mid-back or thoracic spine. So your thoracic spine, I kind of think of it like the queen on a chessboard. It can move forward and backwards, but it can also move side to side. And rather than diagonally like a bishop, let's say, it can rotate. So that mid-back is responsible for a whole bunch of movement. However, we spend our days behind a keyboard or a steering wheel or at the dinner table or reading a book or whatever the case is, the world is in front of us, so our arms are always reaching forward, and that has a tendency to lock out our mid-back. So let's do 3 actions that will just remind the mid-back of how to properly move. And we can all do this on our hands and knees. And just make sure that the hands are directly underneath the shoulders and knees underneath the hips. And what we want to try and do is an old yoga pose, and you'll see your cat or dog doing this on a regular basis. And that's by lifting the spine upward and then dropping it down. Most people that have stiff backs will have a tendency to lift up very high in between their shoulder blades, but when they start coming down, they'll really lower into their lower back and they won't get much movement through their mid-back. So we're going to try and change that a little bit. As you lift up, think of lifting through your lower back a little bit more than you might normally do. And on the way down, think of those shoulder blades kind of falling toward one another and dropping the rib cage. And if you can kind of work that motion, you'll most likely be giving your spine a nice gift of flexion and extension. Now in the same position, we're going to do a little bit of side bending. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my head and look around to one side as if I can just make out my heel. And then I'm going to look to the other side and come around and look at the opposite heel. So what I'm doing here is allowing my rib cage to tilt to the side while I try and drive the hip toward that side also. So my spine is almost like a windshield wiper going back and forth across the top of the floor. So that's the second movement. We've gotten forward and backwards, side to side, but we live in 3-dimensional space, and so that's going to include rotation. So we're going to try and get some rotation through that mid-back. And a couple of ways that we can do that is by placing the hand behind the head, right on the neck. Now, rotating that arm in that direction is going to encourage a little bit more extension through my spine. And then while my spine is feeling that extension, I'm going to turn upward, look toward the ceiling, and draw the elbow up, and then lower back down. And I'll just repeat this for several repetitions. What might help is drawing your pressure or pushing through the floor with the arm that's on the ground. If you feel this in your lower back, chances are the lower back's trying to do more of it than its fair share of rotating, rather than the mid-back that's kind of locked up. So beware of that. If you do feel it in your lower back, what you could do is just sink the hips back toward the heels a little bit to flatten out that lower back, and that should feel a little bit better when you rotate back and forth. Now the other arm position I could do that same movement in is taking my arm and placing it behind the small of my back. That's going to internally rotate my arm, which will encourage flexion of the spine, and then I can go into that rotated motion again. So now I can have 2 positions for my spine, either extending or flexing while I'm rotating. And now what you've just done is given your spine, that mid-back, amazing experience of what it's like to flex and extend, to side bend, and to rotate, whether the spine was encouraged to flex or extend while rotating. A whole bunch of moves on your own chessboard. Give them a try and let me know how it goes.